Welcome. Today I am Marcelo, and let's start again. Hi, welcome. Today we're going to do a recap of WWDC 2026. We're going to talk about all the things that came through. My name is Marcelo. I am staff engineer at ANZ, and I hope we have a good time. We have a lot of things to cover, so we're going to be talking quickly and covering a lot of slides. First, let's day of this guy. And he welcomes everybody. Good morning. Welcome to WWDC, and talked about all the things, all the cool places where the iPhone is used. And then we go to Craig. And our WWDC is basically divided in three parts. We're going to be talking about platform improvements. We're going to be talking about trust and safety. We're going to be talking about Apple Intelligence and Siri. And surprise, the name of the next version is 27. And it's going to be iOS 27, iPadOS 27, watchOS 27, and so on. First thing, as usual, Greg goes and talks about what's coming up with their cracking marketing team. And this time their correct marketing team went, I have no idea what they were on, but they went here, they went back to the moon, they went back to the park, and then they told that the name they had chosen for macOS is Golden Gate. And here's the little Craig. Their car is actually a pretty good head figure. It's a good piece. And there you go. There's got to be a Craig disappointed face at some point. So, first off, platform improvements. On Craig, one thing that catches my attention, and I'm sure any other of you that picks on this stuff is going to notice that he bobbles a lot as he talks. Yeah. And then we go to this executive whose name I don't remember, and I'll call her Cynthia for namesake. And we point out the 200 changes that they lined out for this year's WWDC. And to begin with, and in the sense that they want to take it away as being the ugly thing that nobody wants to talk about, let's get design through first. And they got this guy here, let's call him Jack. And he clearly is the guy that decided to take one for the team and talk about design. And to begin with, we talk about liquid glass and what they're doing with it. Everybody's favorite. This is what liquid glass looks like in iOS 26. This is what it looks like in iOS 27. Back and forth. You can see that there are refractions of light that are not there anymore. You can see on the face on the back that you can see the continuation of the face on the back. And with that, we also get a cool slider that gives us the ability to make it more transparent or more opaque. And I played with it right here. Transparent, opaque. I played with it, and I found that what they chose as the middle ground is good for most people, me included. Other than that, we also have the toolbar. They made this bad decision of making the toolbar gradient in iOS 26, and they put a line there to define the toolbar. Again, thanks for that. The sidebar is back where it should never have left, on the corner. Also, the icons have color back in, so you can tell which application is which from the color alone. They have identity back. Also, corners are back. And this blows my mind. Like they put Slack in as the gold standard of corner radius. Like the Electron app is the definition of what a good user interface is. But now we have the same corner radius throughout the Mac, and that's great. Icons, this is the icon. This is how the Maps icon looks like on iOS 26. They made it more complex, more subtle. They mix it all together, and it's a lot less blurry than it was before. We still have the glass effects through, but it's way more crisp than the previous versions. It's very hard to tell just from looking at both, but once you see in the phone, you kind of appreciate that the subtle changes in the iconography is actually, when you look at it, it's actually good. I still think that UI peaked 2 years ago in the history of mankind, but if this is what we got, I think it's an improvement, and all through the platforms, they're all getting these upgrades. Now, responsiveness, they invested a lot of time clearly on getting the system more responsive. Scrolls are quicker, they feel more fluid. They have 30% faster app launches, 70% loading of new captures in photos, 80% faster AirDrop transfers, and 5 times faster browsing transfer in files in iPadOS. And as a side note, I love how they compose the structure, as in going from a number that's already very good into bigger and bigger numbers. I think they're masters in this craft. CPU scheduler is what decides what tasks are going to do what at what time in the processor on the machine. They have optimized it even more, and that helps with the fluidity. It helps with saving battery time. And as a side note, my opinion is that the number one decision that got the iPhone to be as good as it is these days is the decision on iPhone 1.0 to invest in CPU scheduling. And that's where the butter smooth user interface comes from the front iPhone and so on. And they made it even better now. And all of these goes back through to iPhone 11, all these new features. So everything that iOS 26 supports, iOS 27 will support as well. Network transitions, when you're walking through and you pick up on Wi-Fi, it's going to be a smoother transition between your cellular and the Wi-Fi network you're going through. We have a new feature in photos, in messages, in that when you're sending a video or something, a larger content through messages, you can see a progress bar, and you know something. Yeah, it's a small detail, but it's a good quality of life improvement. Well, search is a big one. It's hard for them to represent it in a way that makes sense, but most of you are engineers, so you know how frustrating the indexing of Spotlight can be. And they seem to have invested a lot of time in making it right this time. And with that, we're going to see a lot of improvements in being able to pick up the right things from Spotlight directly. And this is absolutely one of the pieces that they had to do before AI could actually be delivered in their platforms. Also, Mail has a better ranking system. And Photos is now able to share albums with Android folk, which is good. Also, shared albums share the full size of the photos. Also, menopause. Thank you. Menopause and perimenopause have their sessions in the health app, and I like this one. The AirPods now have a mixer in equation. Yeah. Equalizer, thank you.
Just like the first iPod.
Just like the first iPod. If you are fortunate enough to have a Vision Pro, your panoramic photos you'll be able to expand your panoramic photos and walk close to it. And it looks like that. You'll also be able to set them as backgrounds for your environment. This is one that they haven't. It's once you see it, once you use the feature, you actually feel it. But I think they had an Apple Maps city navigation that was already pretty good in my opinion, but they just improved it by a lot. And one thing that they did was when you're in a city and you have lots of skyscrapers that are mirrored around, You could see artifacts in the mirrors in the previous versions, but if you zoom in now, you can see the buildings with the actual windows as if they were taken from your perspective and not from the floor. And that was a problem they had before, because the photos were taken from the floor, so you could see a reflection of the other skyscrapers around. So this is a big deal. Now we're back to Craig to talk about trust and safety. And trust and safety is a feature that was around in Apple for a long time, but now this release is based on children, mostly. She's single, I remember her name, and we're gonna call him Pete and Monica. And now kids have their own accounts. I'm sorry, I can't remember their names. Kids have their own accounts. And the goal is to allow parents to control what kids can see, who kids can talk to, and when kids have access, and how parents can guide kids. And a lot of us here have kids or have had smaller children, and we know how difficult it is to have conversations with a kid when you don't want to be the blocker. So the perspective that they're taking is to allow the parents to enable the kids to have the right conversations and be able to access the right things at the right time without the parents having to tell them not to all the time. And here is a photo of a teenager very excited about her father blocking her access to things.
Father isn't too excited. He doesn't block anything.
I know, like she looks so, like any other kid would be kicking and screaming, so I found this photo hilarious. Also new to that is blocking of specific websites, of allowing, or the opposite, allowing specific websites on the browser. And that translates also to how parents get their messages asking for approval. That goes to people the kids talk to as well. We already had communication safety, where images that would display nudity would be blocked for a child's account, but now we also have blockage of images that might have gory content. Okay, and we have time allowances, and we can allow parents to set specific times for specific categories, and we can put on schedules. And we have control of pausing devices, when we can change schedules. And as a parent, I think that if my kid was growing up and we had these features at hand, I think some of the conversations would have been easier as a father. As a developer, we have a lot of APIs available to lock into the features, to be able to allow kids to enjoy the features in the appropriate for their ages. And next up, we have Greg again. And he bubbles, and he bubbles, and he goes, and he goes. And we're talking about AI now, and we're talking about how every other company is focusing on AI as a bandwagon, and how Apple wants to make sure that AI makes sense for the use cases of the user. And that's when we get to Apple Intelligence, and we start talking about the big thing that came out this WWDC. The Apple Intelligence bit is divided in architecture, Siri, and apps. Architecture-wise, we have the user focused on the center with the devices around it, and the Apple foundation models surrounding everything. About the models, we heard a lot about Gemini last year, about the business that Apple was hiring Google to employ Gemini. Actually, Apple is not using Gemini directly. They're using Gemini to train their own models, and the models that got trained, they are trained specifically for the Apple platforms and for the Apple users. And they're calling the next generation Apple Foundation models. From memory, there are 5, some mobile and some cloud, or maybe 6. Some.
They called machinelearning.apple.com about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amy just mentioned about the machine learning app website, blog post about it. The models, they are multimodal, so we have image, voice, and text. We have image understanding and generation, and they are more powerful on-device models. I'm genuinely excited about that. They have higher accuracy dictation, better language understanding, expressive voices. Surrounding all that, we have something that is calling the system orchestrator, and is able to employ personal context, world knowledge, actions, and on-screen awareness. Personal context understanding is about knowing where the user are, what the user is doing. We have better world knowledge that's able to go in the web and find things that the user needs, the information that the user needs. We have app actions that that are basically Apple's way of doing MCPs throughout the app, that the LLM can go and harvest the information it needs at the right time. We have on-screen awareness, where the LLMs can just know what's happening on the screen and help the user with what it's at hand. And then we have Siri apps and system-wide experiences that encompass everything. We'll get to those. Privacy, everything is locked. Whatever happens on the device stays on the device. Whatever goes to the cloud leaves no traces about identifying the user. According to them, everything is auditable by a third party. So your data is not stored, it's only used to execute a request. Independent experts can verify. Back to Craig to talk about Siri. Hand it over to, here's Mike Rockwell, I think. This is the Siri you know, and they popped the bubble. And they're calling it Siri plus Apple Intelligence, or Siri AI. And that's a very interesting distinction. They're not calling it New Siri, they are calling it Siri AI, which sounds like it's not a new version of Siri, but a feature-enhanced version of Siri, because it run only on specific hardware requirements. So it's more capable, it's more conversational, has a dedicated Siri app, visual intelligence, right with Siri. How am I with time?
You're fine.
Yep. All right. So this is what it looks like. You talk to Siri, it can give you information from the dynamic island as you go. Information on messages, maps, and if you didn't know, the orange color of the Gold Gate Bridge is an international orange. About it being a more capable assistant, this is a very cool demo, and this is a lesson that they learned from 2 years ago, when everything they showed with Apple Intelligence was pre-rendered, and this time they were careful of doing the demos live as they showed, and you could actually see like delays in the responses coming, and you could see them reading the responses coming and actually reacting to them, because they weren't being sure about exactly how it would come. So asking about concerts of Suki Waterhouse, and Siri says that there are concerts in Melbourne. He asks to remind when the lottery is open, and then he starts playing some songs, all contextual. Then finds a rock in Instagram. Where's the rock? Somewhere nearby. Is it close to my friend? Yeah, that's his address. Found the address of a friend in his messages and got directions to it. Another one, photos of last weekend in his ranch. Lots of cows. I don't want cows, I want my family photos. Here's the family photos. Want to add to family album here. Siri is more conversational, hardware allowing. You can change pace, expressibility. You can make an American voice if that's your thing. It's baked into the keyboard, like the right to Siri, I believe it's called, it's just there. It's the voice recognition is a lot better, is what you expect after using, say, Whisper from ChatGPT. You can do it in CarPlay, you can do it while running, because we all run like that. And here is Jimmy, and we're going to talk about something, how it's more conversational. Here is Siri being context aware of what's happening on the screen, talking about the message that he received without actually leaving the message. And it's about it being adapted to the user interactions that you get, whatever platform you are in, being in the Vision, being on the watch, being on the phone or on the Mac. Here's what it looks like. I haven't played on my phone, but I suspect that the double tap on the Siri bar on the bottom is gone, because now you bring it from the top.
Yeah, from the dynamic island.
Right. Amy, are you trying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you tap on the Siri on the bottom, does it bring up Siri as well? No? There you go. It's gone. So long. So Jimmy's talking about the World Cup and what's coming up in the World Cup. And the thing here is that he brings the thing down, the dragger down, and it becomes his own app, and it's a chat interface app. And he does a follow-up question about dishes for the Brazil versus Morocco game. And I can attest that Siri was spot on in coxinha and pão de queijo being fantastic party dishes. I am Brazilian. And I know. So this is my checking that Siri actually came back with meaningful information. His daughter had ideas for dessert, and they brought it up in the same conversation. They wrapped it up in a menu for a party that mixed both Moroccan and Brazilian dishes into something interesting. And ready to send to his, what is it called, Go Chasers group. And I don't know, whoever names their group like that shouldn't be on a video. But the interesting thing is, what caught my attention here is the way that Siri phrased the question. It sounds like Jimmy is writing the message himself. It doesn't sound like a corporate slop that you see sometimes with AI writing from, right? Spotlight becomes Siri, changes the interface in adopting Siri. So no more of the isolated icon that we had before. You can also, testing? You can also right click on things to ask Siri, and that's a contextual. Thank you, Jane. And that's contextual. Here's an example of Jimmy typing something and opening something quickly. What caught my attention here is he is just writing family stuff and typing enter quickly, and that did not go through Siri. That's a normal Spotlight interaction that you expect the in-texting to have things that you need right away. But then when he types something that Siri, the system recognizes as being actually a question that should be offloaded to Siri, it actually gives his interface to call Siri. And this is what it looks like when Siri is actually open. And he can also right click on things and get contextual conversation about the things that he's clicking on. Say in this case here, he's clicking on 3 PowerPoints and is trying to get Siri to actually read through them and give him feedback on how that works. And here's one point that I found interesting is that he just typed this quickly and there was a typo here. It's possibly difficult to see in the screen, but point is Siri, he reacted to it and it just felt like a normal presentation. Like it felt like a human and not a very pre-made art. The Siri app looks like this. It's available on all platforms, even on the watch. And this is an interesting one that I glanced through. The watch now has a new grid that it shows when you click on the ring. This is what it looks like on Vision OS, and you look at it and it knows you're talking to it. And now comes Seb to talk about visual intelligence. And you'll notice that Siri now lives in the camera. It's private. Visual intelligence can take photos of your, tell you stuff about nutrition. You can take photos of receipts. There's a new keyboard shortcut in the Mac that you can engage with screenshots of Siri. You can use it to add things to your calendar. There's also an iPad app for it. And in Vision Pro, if you are fortunate enough to have one, you can look at things and talk to Siri about it. Siri knows what you're looking at. You can look at things and contextually ask about the things that Siri already knows. So look at that boot and ask if it fits on a bag that you were looking at on a website. I think that blew my mind. You can write with Siri. Siri now can compose full texts. That's what it looks like. And I mentioned this before. It knows who you talk to and how you talk to. So if you write a message to your mom and you write a message to your boss, it's going to use the same tones that you usually use to talk to those people. So sending a message to your boss is going to send a message professionally, in theory. And you can also review your text. And proofreading is also automatic now, and because everything is baked in a keyboard, you get, most applications are going to get it for free, unless your company, the company works for, blocks it. Siri everywhere. And back to Craig to talk about apps. Safari. Let's call her Madalena. Madalena talks about tabs, and tabs now are organizable by topic. And if you are one of those mad people that get your toolbar to look like this, automatically it's going to start being grouped by this, and it's going to be grouped as you go. There's also Notify Me, and Notify Me allows you to sign up for a website, and Siri is going to watch for changes on the website, and now it's done privately. You can also describe an extension for things that you could possibly do on shortcuts. An extension in the browser, an extension can be the right choice for that. Passwords allow you to fix passwords automatically. On messages, you now have tabs for reminders and add to notes according to context. Also, if somebody asks for a beach picture or something, when you open pictures to be added, it's going to show you beach pictures. You can also get suggestions in mail. You already have that, but it's better. You can describe your events in calendar, and when you're on the phone with somebody, say an airliner, Siri is going to know that you are calling the airliner. It's going to give you relevant information according to what you have on your phone. And now we have Patricia that's going to talk about home. One of the features is about getting all those notifications that you get from home, group them together. We talk about, yep. I'll finish the apps. It's able to track images and classify them, so we can search for them as well. And shortcuts, this is where I'll finish. Shortcuts is very powerful, but it's also overcomplicated for anyone really, not developers. I can do something like this if I put my time in, but I don't often. Now you can describe a shortcut. So you can describe, when I'm leaving work, message Pedro that on my way. And then there's a shortcut that does just like that, and there are shortcuts specific for platforms as well. And now with Susan, and we were going to talk about image playgrounds. Just to wrap up. Yep. Just to wrap up, we talk about backgrounds on the developer side. A lot of image backgrounds, a lot of generative capabilities. John is going to talk about photos. This is black magic. Being able to reframe a person after the shot's taken is just crazy. It's available in multiple languages. If you use cloud services, there's a limit, but if you have Cloud Plus, you can, like all the subscribers. And that's it. For you to get writing with Siri, you need the latest iPhones, but if you're not writing with Siri and you don't want to use the latest listening to Siri, anything from iOS 16 works, from iPhone 16 works. And that's it. And I'll leave this for developers. Thank you.